I've got here a copy of Beastgrave. Let's take a look. So this is the new start set for Warhammer Underworlds, which Games Workshop would very much like everybody to stop calling Shadespire. So it's a little more expensive than the previous starter sets, but I imagine part of that is inflation. So let's have a look at what we've got. We've got a nice thick board pack. We've got a rule book and instructions. We've got 2 warbands. Those are some real nice models. I'll zoom in and have a close look at them in a little bit. We've got, we've got bags to put all the counters in. We've got faction decks for both of these warbands. We've got the standard dice pack, including the magic dice. So I used the undead dice from season 1 because they're much nicer, but that gives you magic dice as well. And you've got the universal cards as well. So I'm going to come back and we'll look closer at the cards, at the models and at the rules. I've had a look through the rules. They are mostly the same. They are tidied up. There are some new sections. It talks about innate symbols. Yeah, so innate gives you an additional success essentially. They go through the alternative rules. They talk about matched play. They talk about how to play various games, so multiplayer games. They talk about going with a fixed board format. They talk about a lot of stuff. And they have a glossary. And even more importantly, they have a combat sequence reference section on the back. It goes through all the activation options. It goes through determining what a success is. It goes through exactly how the combat sequence works, but it tidies up what was already a reasonably tight system. You've also got a bit of background. It does give you, essentially, it basically tells you between this and the cards what the factions are, so goblins, Nurgle, Flesh Eater Courts. But the rules are much improved. The decks you get pre-built, let's zoom in. So the decks you get pre-built you've got some things with intrinsic hunter, so hunter becomes important. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hunters. Is that when they're inspired? 1, 2, 3, 4 hunters, plus a wizard, plus a bigger fighter with a big axe. So you get 6 models in the Beastman warband. They inspire when 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action. You've got, 3 of them are 2 wounds, so they're chaff characters. You've got 2 3 wound, 1 4 wound. When you flip them over, yeah, you gain cleave, but you switch to being swords instead of that. You gain cleave, yeah, you gain cleave, but nothing else. Ooh, you got ritual here. There's some cards that interact with rituals. So you gain another dice with that, nothing else changes. You gain another dice with that, but nothing else changes. You gain another dice with that, but nothing else changes. And you you gain another dice with short bow, and nothing else changes for this one. So 6 fighters, that's a reasonably good set of numbers, but in these pre-made decks you've got 6 Beastman objectives, and you've got your hold objective decks, so your hold objectives and annihilation. So you can replace them all with specific Beastman objectives, and that's what you've got in this extra card pack. You've got more universals, but you've also got more Beastmen and more Wild Hunt cards, enough to go with a pure theme deck. So some of these, if your leaders killed 2 things, you can score that. In an end phase where you hold 1 or more objectives in enemy territory, you score that. Score immediately after an activation if your warband holds 3 or more objectives. That is potentially really useful for scoring a couple of glory early. Proven superiority, your leader's not dead, any enemy leaders, including a multiplayer game, they're dead. That's 2. There's other kill leader cards that you can stack into that. Score immediately when a 3rd or subsequent friendly fighter makes a charge action in the same phase. Survival of the fittest, if you've got 1 or more surviving fighters and 5 or more fighters are out of action. So you can still score this if you're down to 1 model and all the casualties are your side. Annihilation, kill all the enemy, and then hold the objectives, which are all scored in end phases. Baying Anger, +1 dice in your next attack action. Baying Hatred, +1 damage in your next attack action. So you could play these one after another to give you +1 dice and +1 damage. On Draknar, that gives him damage 4. Berserk Bellow, push an enemy fighter 1 hex, +1 for each wound on the model that's pushing them, and that's from something adjacent to you. Bestial Vigor, Gambit spell, +2 move in next activation. Great if you've got a multi-move card. Blood Taunt, give a friendly fighter 1 damage guard token, then they get +2 dice on their next attack action. Vile Invaders, push 2 friendly hunters 2 hexes. So all your Ungor are friendly hunters. So that can help get them moving, that can put them on objectives and help you score the objective cards. Weight of Numbers, +1 damage. If you've got 2 hunters next to something, you get +1 damage. Blood Crazed, +1 damage if you've got 1 or more wound tokens. Cursed Flint, Cleave, that replaces a hand weapon on one of the hunters. Jabbing Spear, +1 range on your short spear, which will give those range 2, which is reasonably useful. Savage Bolt, Knockback, critical hit, +1 damage, so that's reasonable. Sorcerer's Trinket, reroll dice on the casting roll. Trophy Taker, give it to Draknar, gain +1 glory for taking enemies out of action. So that's like Savage Trophy and is really useful against low health warbands, particularly as Draknar Inspired has Cleave and does 3 damage, and there's plenty of things to give him +1 damage. Confusion is a universal. Switch 2 fighters. Eldritch Haze is a universal gambit spell. If cast, the caster has +1 defense. Persists until the end of the round or the caster is taken out of action. Snare, play in a friendly hunter's attack action after it drives back an enemy fighter, they're dealt another damage. That's pretty useful, particularly as you've got 4 hunters. Caltrops, during a range 1 attack action, after this fighter is driven back before they're dealt damage by any lethal hexes, their attacker takes dealt 1 damage. That's a good revenge action. Great Fortitude is +1 wounds, Great Speed is +1 move, Great strength is +1 damage, and that should probably go straight on Draknar to give him damage 4. So that's the Beastman deck that they give you to start with, and it's pretty good. So let's pull out the specific Beastman cards. So these are the 6 specific Beastman objectives. We've got Bestial Cunning, score immediately when you play your 3rd or subsequent gambit in a round. Bloodshed, score in an end phase if 3 or more enemy fighters are out of action. Yep. Killing Blow, kill something in one go, great with combined with Draknar, score immediately. Raiders, 3 or more friendly fighters in enemy territory, score immediately. Swarm the battlefield, score in an end phase if there's 1 or more friendly fighters in your territory, enemy territory, no one's territory. So there's a lot of, you've got 6 models, you've got a card to push Hunters 2 hexes, you've got some other things, you've got some good objective based cards. Taint of Ruin, score an end phase where you've cast 2 or more spells. So you've got a lot of things that will help you score some glory. So let's skip 2. You've also got Supremacy, Denial and Conquest, 2 copies of each, which are all useful. But then we've got some more Beastman Gambits. So Bull Charge. First attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has Incarnate Swords. So it gives you 1 success straight away. Devolve Gambit spell. You can pull something off something, which is great. Skirmisher. Play after a friendly fighter's move action. They can make a range 3+ attack action. That's basically for shooting bows. Blinding Attack. This attack has +1 damage when it targets an adjacent enemy fighter, but it's restricted to 1 of your hunters. That's very situational. After an attack action that targets this fighter and fails, push this fighter up to 2 hexes to get you out of the way. Endless Hatred. This fighter's attack action takes enemy fighter out of action. Make another attack action, and that's on Gnarl, who is a standard hunter with a flint axe. So it's nowhere near as useful as if you could put it on Grashrak or Draknar. And Heedless of Pain, +1 wounds. So you can combine that with Great Fortitude to give something +2 wounds. So you've got some solid Beastman cards. Let's have a look at Scraith's Wild Hunt. You've got 5 models. 4 of them are hunters and 1 of them's a sort of cat thing. They charge and inspire after they charge. So you probably want to do a lot of charging in turn 1. So Scraith, Javelin, range 3, 2 hammers, 1 damage. But only once per game, and +1 damage when it's made as part of a charge action. So it's great for inspiring and maybe knocking off one of the damage 2 Beastmen characters. And Kicking Hooves, range 1, 3 swords, 2 damage. Move 5, shields and 4. And when inspired, move 5, 2 shields and 4. And Kicking Hooves gets scything, so you can hit multiple targets next to you. And if you inspire and you've still got the Javelin, it becomes 3 hammers. You were really going to have trouble pronouncing these. Shiok, he's got a big pointy sword, hammers 2 damage, movement 4, dodge 3, 1 inspired, 3 hammers, cleave 2 damage, that's really useful, 1 defense dice on dodge still, but you can re-roll it, 5 movement, 3 health. Cat Thing, movement 5, 1 dodge, 2 health. Can't give him attack action upgrades, can't hold objectives. Teeth and Claws, range 1, 2 swords, 1 damage. Inspire, he gets Ensnare, 3 swords, 1 damage, 2 dodge, as opposed to 1. Kethan Huntcaller is a wizard. Wand, 2 hammers, 2 damage. Hunting Horn, put a horn counter on this card as an action. When there's a horn, reroll any number of dice in the next attack roll made for a friendly fighter's attack action, then remove the horn counter. That's useful. And he's got 4 movement, 2 dodge, 3 health. And then when he's inspired, the wand becomes 3 damage. Still got the horn, 5 movement, 2 dodge, 3 health. And finally you've got another hunter with a bow, 4 movement, 1 dodge, 3 health. Range 3, hammers on the bow instead of swords, which is good, 1 damage. And then Ensnare when you're inspired, and an additional point of movement. And you again get the reroll 1 dice in the defense roll when this fighter is the target of an attack action. So you've got some solid stuff in there. The cat is very expendable, but you've got a wizard, you've got a decent combat character. In fact, you've got a couple of reasonable combat characters, and having Cleave, Scything and Ensnare knocking around is pretty good. So, objectives. Cry of the Wild, score. If Carthan survives and he's made a Hunting Horn action in the previous phase. So again, you've got complete control over when you score that. Score immediately when you push a fighter into an enemy hex. Score in end phase if you hold all the objectives in one or more players' territory, that's 2. Ritual Kill. Score immediately when you take an enemy fighter standing in the same hex as an objective out of action. That's a useful one. Run Down. Score when you take an enemy fighter out as part of an attack action that was made as part of a charge. Safety and Swiftness. Score if 3 or more surviving fighters have move or charge tokens. Again, you control when you score that. Then you've got Annihilation and the objectives. So let's look at objectives that you get in the specific deck. Score and end phase if all surviving friendly fighters are inspired. Again, you can pretty much control that. Score if 3 or more surviving friendly fighters have got upgrades. Score in end phase if an enemy fighter with a wounds characteristic of 4 or greater is out of action, or you hold 3 or more objectives. That's good. Score when your leader takes an enemy fighter out of action. That's good. And again, that's an instant score. Score if 3 or more enemy fighters are out of action. And score when your warband casts a spell. So you've got a lot of things that you can control when you score. Let's have a look at the gambits and upgrades. Okay, gambit spell. Choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes, give them a move token. Ha ha! That can give you that's useful. Fleet of Foot. Choose a friendly fighter that's got no move or charge tokens, they make a move action. That's useful for scoring one of those and useful for moving your stuff around. Choose 2 friendly fighters, push them each up to 1 hex. Gambit spell, choose a friendly fighter, range 1 and 2 actions, got +1 damage until the end of the round or taken out of action. Retrieve Javelin, gives you your Javelin back. Striking Concert, range 1 or 2, +1 damage for each friendly supporting fighter. That's good. Swift as the Wind, remove a move token from a friendly fighter. Battle Cry, remove all guard tokens from adjacent enemy fighters and push them up to 1 hex. Divine Strength, all your attack actions got knockback 1. Fast Shot, gives you a bow 1. Gives them double shot. That's useful. Great Strides, +2 move. And that's an upgrade. So you can get some things up to move 7. Hail Charm. Ooh, got to go on a hunter character, of which everything except the cat is a hunter. Reduce the damage that comes in by 1 to a minimum of 1. That's an auto take. Shield Slash goes on Scathe and gives him a 3 damage attack. Vicious Darts is a spell. On critical hit, +1 damage. Eldritch, yeah, now we're getting into the generics. Eldritch Hage, Sidestep, Snare, Caltrops, Great Fortitude, Great Strength. So let's have a look at the specifics. So Healing Breeze is an area of effect healing. So pick a hex within 4 hexes, heal 1 damage on any fighters in that hex and in hexes adjacent. Pounce, push a friendly fighter up to 3 hexes so they're adjacent to an enemy fighter that's got 1 or more wound tokens. And that's great for sneaking onto an objective as well, after you've managed to knock somebody back. Song of Swiftness, friendly fighter's got +1 move, persists until the end of the round. Eye of Kurnoth, fighters' attack actions have got +1 dice. If the target's a quarry, they get ensnare as well. Hunting Aspect goes on the cat, +2 move, +1 defense, +1 wounds. That's really useful for the cat if the cat's still alive. Hunter, reroll 1 dice in the defense action. After a friendly fighter's attack action has taken an enemy fighter out of action, if this card is in your hand, you can buy the upgrade straight away. Okay. Confusion. Now we're getting into the generics. Confusion, Marked, Sidestep, Great Speed, Predatory Instinct. So the decks they give you are actually pretty good. It lets you build, they are built around playing things a certain way, they're tightly themed. The Beastman deck is largely about more damage and more dice to damage. The Elf deck is largely about movement. So let's have a closer look at the models. This is really just to show the quality. So you can see on the bases you've got the leaves, you've got quite a lot actually in this guy here. You've got the kitty, which is not as big as you might think, but yeah, this is, it's a well laid out sprue. You've got a lot of stuff on it. They are spread out quite a bit. And quickly show you the Beastman one. You've got 4 Ungor and 2 Gore, but they are the best looking Beastmen GW have done. And you've got nice scenic bases with all sorts of stuff on them. I think they'll paint up really nicely. So the models are good. I'm impressed by the rules. They've improved the rules set. And a quick look at the boards, but you've also got the counters. Some people complained that there's some optional counters, but yeah, they're optional counters. You can just use any sort of token. It's not a big deal. But GW will very often do, you could use this. Same as they've done with the Titan Legio Tactics cards. All the tactics are in the book, but you've got the option of buying an extra product. And yeah, there's some real nice stuff on this. And there's some stuff built in that you take advantage of with the expansions. So I'm going to pop all this out, get it ready to run demos in my store tomorrow. I may do some build videos on the models, but I'm quite impressed with this. It is definitely the best starter they've done. I didn't expect to be that keen on the elf models, but when you look at them, they are really quite good. I think I'll certainly need to make sure they're well protected in a case, but it's not like they don't do cases, and it's not like I don't have a case that I got for Warcry that I can put this stuff in. But I like it, and I would very much like to see these models given rules for Warcry as well, because they're really good beastmen. Really, really nice. So if you've liked this video, hit like and subscribe. If you want to chat, leave a comment below. But otherwise, good gaming.